It's fantastic to have you here, such a fabulous audience, and to have you in a moment in which the United Nations is really dedicated, really engaged to ensure that you, the majority of you, your generation, have not only a brighter future, but a better future and a better future for the planet. Because this is the agenda of the United Nations this year and for the next 15 years. So let me say a couple of things first. You know, I am rather lucky because my job is to tell stories. So if you have that job and on top the story is a good one, is a substantive one, you are quite halfway. But what do I need? What do we need in order to do this job well the other halfway? We need you. We need the UNAs all over the world. We need the United Nations Association in this country and beyond to help, to support, and to lead in telling this story. Because this year, the story is a fabulous story. And you will immediately see why it is fabulous. Because it's a story about the energy to transform the world. It's the story about the determination of 193 member states to transform the world. And it's the story to do that in partnership, not just governments alone, but in partnership with everybody that counts, the civil society, the NGOs, individuals. Each one of you are not only going to tell the story, but to act on the story. This is what makes the agenda of this year so fabulous, and this is why having you here today, it is so extraordinary. So let me underline 2 or 3 critical issues about the story that we are telling and we are implementing. Is one of reducing inequality, ending poverty, achieving gender equality, and tackle climate change. And that story started to be shaped on that day, on the 25th of September last year. You see lots of joyful people, delegates, presidents, prime minister standing and taking a big applause, giving a big applause to the adoption of the Sustainable Development Agenda. This is the agenda for the next 15 years. And they are so happy, not only because they got the agenda agreed, because after over 2 years, they have been working, I should say day and night, very hard, in order to ensure that everybody agreed. In the United Nations, we need consensual agreements. And this story of the Sustainable Development Goals isn't a story of everybody in agreement. That's why they are so happy. And we even were able to put some pictures in the backdrop, so you'll see very soon what it means. So the 17 development goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, the ones that are going to transform the world, why are they so important? Because despite that quite a lot of people in the planet live well, are benefiting from progress and education, I'm going to give you a few figures that make you shake a little bit. In fact, make you shake a lot. 800 million people still live in extreme poverty. 795 million people still suffer from hunger. 57 million children who are denied the right to attend primary school have no prospects of having an education. Women still face discrimination at work, in the economy, and in private and public decision making. And deep economic gaps between the poorest and the richest households and rural areas still exist, and not only in the least developed countries, in the most developed countries. That's why it is so important to see the story that we have agreed and we are going to tell and implement. It is perceived as global and universal. We are not talking anymore about development for the countries that are more behind. We are talking about issues that have to be tackled by everybody, from the most developed country in the world, those that have very high incomes, to the least one. There are issues that have to be agreed and have to be done, and that's why we need to implement the decisive action that was taken last year. Second thing, I want to remind you of why do we have such a good story to tell and why we all have to participate in it. It goes back to December, when we were so fortunate that in Paris, these extremely joyful people represent the world agreement to preserve the planet. That was the moment when the climate change agreement was endorsed by everybody. Again, the same setup. 193 member states never before had taken such a deep commitment to ensure that we decisively act to protect the planet. This is a fabulous agenda for the future. All of you under 30 are going to have to work hard and benefit out of it. And the rest, we will definitely enjoy you. So this is another moment of action, of celebration, but that needs a lot of implementation, and that we need to work with you. Let me mention another thing, which is extremely important and needs action. And Chris already touched on it: refugees, migration. This is a year that the United Nations is determined to tackle the tremendous problem of migration, the number of millions of people that are mobilized. And I'm going to give you a couple of moments. In the next month, we are going to hold a key meeting in Geneva to work on the issues related to migration and Syria. And in May, in Istanbul, we are going to discuss the challenges all over the world. So again, development, climate, migration, and refugees. Those are dramatic, fundamental issues that the United Nations is addressing this year. So how are we doing it? Let me show you a couple of slides on something which is very iconic that I hope from now on you will recognize immediately. When you will see this, you'll say, wow, this is the UN in action. What does it mean? The 17 development goals that have the objective to ensure that we address poverty, inequality, and injustice, that we work for people, for the planet, to get prosperity, to be in peace, and in a manner in partnerships. So those are the development goals that during the day you are going to hear a lot of them. And for the moment after this one, these images I'm sure will be with you and will make you reflect that that means action. And they are drawn in a manner that allows us to ensure that when we think about development and about the agenda of the United Nations, we see this very powerful, joyful communication that keeps us mobilized. We were so excited that we even tainted the building with the icons of the development goals on the days when the heads of state and government were here last year. So we want you to have them in your mind, and we want you that you individually reflect and act on what you can do in order to get them implemented. That's why we have done in the Department of Public Information something I don't want to offend anybody, but we call the Lazy Person's Guide to Saving the World. You know, sometimes we have to be very blunt, and we have to recognize that, let us ourselves go a little bit. But even if you are the laziest person in the world, there is something you can do. So I recommend to go to our website and to look that by almost doing very little effort or no effort, you can engage yourself in implementing the sustainable agenda of the United Nations and start transforming yourself and transforming the world around you. So let me ensure that you know where is our website, because you will find lots of information, including the Lazy Person's Guide to Saving the World. And let me end with a couple of reflections. We are talking about an agenda that has to change lifestyle, that has to change lots of perceptions, and that has to change lots of actions in the manner in which we have been doing things. But we are absolutely committed to do it. But for that, we need your help. And at the end, when we will look back in the next years of that current moment, and when we definitely will be in a cleaner, greener, and a more secure world with the help of each one of you. Thank you very much. Thank you.